Okay guys, so we're going to start preparing for the SOL, and the way the geometry SOL is split up is it has three parts. Part one, and all the problems are all mixed together, but they break up all of the problems into three strands or three types of problems. The first type is reasoning lines and transformations. The second type is going to be triangles, and the third type is going to be polygons, circles, and 3D shapes. We're going to break down our memory sheet into three parts, and for this video, I'm just going to go through the memory sheet portion for this first portion, which is reasoning lines and transformations. So these are the things that we think you should memorize. It's not everything that's going to be on the SOL, but some of the stuff that you may have forgotten that we want to help you remember. So when it comes to logic, we have conditional statements, and all conditional statements are if-then statements. The conditional is if something, then something. So if it's raining outside, then there are clouds in the sky, okay? The converse statement says, I want to take what I had before, but I'm going to switch the order. So I can't remember what I said before, but this would be something like, if there are clouds in the sky, then it is raining. All I did was I switched the order. So notice the stuff after the then is now after the if. An inverse statement says, take the original order, but now let's negate everything. So if it's not raining, then there are not clouds in the sky. And then the contrapositive takes the switch and the negate. So if there are not clouds in the sky, then it is not raining. And just in case you've forgotten, we do have truth value buddies. So these two, if one's true, the other's true. And these two, if one's true, the other two. Those are the truth value buddies. There's four symbols that I can think of that you should definitely not forget. We have negate. That's that squiggly. We have therefore. We have and we have or. So I'm going to highlight those symbols just so they stand out a little better. So this was the negate. That's the therefore. There's your and. There's your or. Okay, so that's the first part. When we talk about lines, typically we're talking about parallel lines. And if you guys remember, we said if we have parallel lines, then any two angles made by these lines in the transversal should either be congruent or parallel. So I'm going to say if lines are parallel, angles are either congruent or add to 180. This is when we do our dots and our stars. So I pick a dot and I just go every other dot, 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 star, 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 star. Two dots will be the same. Two stars will be the same. Any dot and star will add up to 180. Okay? Here are our formulas. The first big one that we see is the distance formula, which is a change in the x's squared plus a change in the y's squared. Okay? Now remember, we talked about this in class, but a lot of times we can just use the Pythagorean Theorem. Instead. Especially if you have graph paper, just draw the line, make it into a right triangle, and use the Pythagorean Theorem. Same thing for the midpoint. A lot of times we can figure out what the answer to the problem is, but just in case you can't, the midpoint formula says take an average of the x coordinates and an average of the y coordinates. Okay. Slope, we just talked about this recently. It's been a while, but slope is rise over run. And if we turn that into a formula, we get the change in the y's over a change in the x's. Okay. There's two more things that are important. If I want my lines to be parallel, I'm going to have the same slope. If I want my lines to be perpendicular, the slopes are going to be negative reciprocals. Okay, so that's our first strand. That's really everything from the first third of the year. Okay, so we're going to do a second video to help you do triangles next.